For the paint palette, if you've loaded up some paint and you just want to double check colors that you saw, I'm just going to run through those really quickly. For paint brushes, as I'm going through colors, I've switched up sizes quite a bit. I always say grab the size brush that best fits. The first size brush I'm going to do is the largest brush I have for 16 by 20 covering the background, so it's about an inch, inch and a half. And then I just go from there to using medium rounds and flats. And then I would just grab a handful of your tiniest brushes for detailing. We don't get to detailing until the very end for decorating the tree. However, the smaller the better. And for rounds and flats, if you want to substitute your favorite fan brushes or filberts or slanted brushes that you may have, I totally understand. They're great brushes to use too, and they're just different kinds of rounds and flats out there. It's really just more about the size to make sure you have something for every size shape that we do. The paint colors on my plate, you probably guessed a few of them, but what I'm going to do is just point out a few things that I do differently on my palette for all my paintings. I have separate piles of white for mixing reasons, so that way I don't have one dirty pile of white. I separate it because I already know I'm going to be using it to lighten different colors. And then I need some pure white for snow. So I wouldn't have all your white in one pile. If you're counting mines, I have about 4 piles of white. And just regular titanium white or any primary regular white will work, just as long as it can lighten up the colors for you. A standard blue, like an ultramarine or a cobalt or a primary blue, you just want a nice medium blue, so it doesn't need to be super dark. And you want to have a lighter blue as well on your palette. If you only have one blue, the great thing is a lot of these paintings, as I mentioned, all the colors are something you can mix for. This is why you have white on the plate. You can always take white and add it to cobalt or your ultramarine blue in order to make yourself a lighter blue. If you already have some and you want to use it up, I would totally do it for this painting. You'll probably find a lot of good reasons to use up some light blue. Some other colors that you saw are for the ornaments. So there's green, of course, for the tree, and you can darken or lighten any green that you have with the black or the white and yellow. And then I'm going to be using red and yellow in order to get some of those peach and pink tones, as well as for decorating the ornaments. And the first brush I'm going to be using is a big brush. Now this part is really important. I always have all of my students ask me all the time, like, how do you get a perfect circle? And I tell them most artists are going to tell you to trace something. They definitely don't try to do it freehand. So another one that I've been using, and you might have probably seen another artist probably at this point show you that we have circles everywhere this time of year to trace. So one of my favorite things to do is you can grab a lid out of your kitchen. You probably find a ton of circles there and in the fridge. And candle lids are a perfect circle usually as well. So you just want to pick the size circle for your snow globe. If you're doing a 16 by 20, the paper plate will fit perfectly for a snow globe. If you have something smaller, you can grab a candle lid or something out of the kitchen to trace, or even if you just want a different size. But as soon as you have picked one, you want to just take a pencil or something and trace a circle onto your canvas. So if you have a pencil, or the equivalent is if you want to use paint, gray on a paintbrush will also draw in a grayish line. So either gray pencil lines, or you can do it with paint. What I would suggest doing is mixing black and white. So you can take a little bit of white and add a pinch of black to it and get a very light gray. And you can continue using your pencil if you like. I would trace around your circle with this gray, and I have a medium-sized flat brush right now. And what we're going to do is what we call our understudy. So we're just going to put like a guideline down for our paintbrush strokes. So if you don't like something, you want to make something bigger or smaller, the best part about an understudy is you can change things still. So you definitely don't have to be stuck with something. It's just like when you're sketching in with your pencil for anything else, you can just erase something by wetting your brush and rubbing it away with a paper towel, or even baby wipes rub paint off actually. So you just want to pick a base. So you can do like a triangular base or a circle bubble base like I'm going to be doing tonight. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw, and you just want to kind of put your thumb in. So you want to come in about a thumb's distance to start the base of your snow globe on both sides. I'm not going to make anybody grab out a ruler for this part. And so for the bubble, it's just like making wide U's, but you just want to double it up twice. So here I come. And then you can make another one. You just want to start from one and like you're making a soup bowl and go around from one side to the other and then come underneath the first one to make the second. So there's my first one. So there's two. And then after you have your gray in for that, you can just put in your horizon line, and the horizon line is another like a parenthesis mark or a very wide U shape. And I'm just going to throw in that right about here. And I'm just going to jump, float my brush until I get to the other side, and there's the rest of my horizon. And I did my entire understudy with a nice flat brush. And then I got my bigger brush out right next to it because I'm going to throw in my background. So what you do is just streak blue and white across your entire background. So that's this 2/3 area around our snow globe. And what we're going to do is just color blocking. So there's no detailing for a while. So we're just going to start filling in these larger shapes with the colors that they're meant to be. And it's supposed to be painterly. So that's why I keep emphasizing that you don't have anything to be perfectly one color. And things that are two-tone usually seem more three-dimensional. So what I'm doing right now is I loaded up my biggest brush, and what I'm going to do is first drag it very slowly around my snow globe so that way it's protected. It's kind of like adding blue tape before you paint a wall in your house. So what I'm going to do is slowly trace this object so I can watch my brush strokes as I go around so I don't accidentally go in the wrong spot with this color. And I'm just going to fill in the entire background with this blue, and in a moment I'm going to start adding in white. I'm just first going to get around my snow globe. Shouldn't take me too long. And notice I'm just taking my time so I get all around that nice perfect circle so I don't accidentally reshaping it. And there you go. And make sure if you need more water, you always get more paint. You don't go straight to your canvas. You can add water straight to your color and make it move around. So I'm thinning my color a little bit because I am using medium bodies that are a little bit thick like icing. So I want them to glide for me right now. So I'm just going to keep going around. And sometimes I do pre-dampen a canvas before I paint, but moisture control is all about what texture you're seeking. And I want a really sharp line around my snow globe. So I want to control the moisture for the background. So I'm just taking my deep blue first and completely coating my background. And if you have stretched edges, don't forget that 1/2 inch side. And I'm just doing some very long, flat brush strokes. Some of the more of the dimensions going to come in when we add the stars and everything to the background. So it's not too dark since there's only one layer of blue. And if you don't like a brush stroke, if something is still wet, you can actually just take your brush right back through them and change the direction of a brush stroke before they dry, which is what I'm demonstrating right now. You can actually just pull the wet paint. So there's my background. And then I'm going to take a little bit of white now. And I'm just going to go back in and streak some white now to that background. Which is another reason why it's so important that we started off with multiple piles of white. So that way we're going to get some light and dark areas in our starry sky. And you just want to take your time and just keep pulling the sky around your snow globe. And I'm definitely loving the buildup of texture as I keep adding paint. So it's getting heavier and heavier. You can overlap as many times as you would like, or you can keep it very solid. I'm just going now with my second layer. So this is my second time going around. And then I'm going to let my brush and paint rest. And so I will pause at this step before we go to our grounds. I'll give everyone a moment to get those edges as well. Don't forget, you don't like a brush stroke. If the paint's wet, you can change the direction of the paint before it dries. So there's a nice streaky blue-white background. I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to take my advice and drink my tea for a moment and let that dry. I'm personally more of a fan of this cooler weather we've been having anyway here in Virginia. I like the in-between seasons and 70 and 60-degree weather. And I did switch off my big brush so that way I can use it again for the bottom half. Or if you have two background brushes, you can just switch them over too and let the other one just sit in the cup. So there's my big brush. Just have it there off to the side. And once we have the sky, and remember we're still just color blocking, so we're going to get to the smaller details soon, but we just want to get a nice base down. The bottom is why I wanted a little bit of a lighter blue, so that way there's a difference between the area that's the snow and the area that's the sky. And you want to definitely use more white than blue though for the snow section. So you still want to cover this plain canvas with acrylic white paint, but you want to definitely tap in some light blue to become the shadows in the snow, as well as there's a shadow getting casted of deeper blue that we'll throw in underneath the snow globe. But for now, we're just going to get snow everywhere. And so I'm going to load up my biggest brush. And this probably is hard to see, but I'm painting white right now. And so you just want to take white and cover the entire bottom half of your canvas. So you should have a blue sky and a snowy white base for your snow globe. And I'm still just dragging my brush around the snow globe so that way I'm not coloring it just yet. So here goes some flat white snow. So that's white. And then what I'm going to do is just streak in a little bit of my lighter blue inside of that. So just like with the top one, started off with the deep blue and then brought in my lighter blue. So then now I'm just going to tap in a little bit of some lighter blue, just so there's some dimension to the snow. So this is the lighter blue and I'm using the same brush. And I'm just blending it in softly. So I don't like harsh shadows, but they do exist everywhere. So just making sure to tap in a little bit of light blue. Going to seem like you're adding a pastel in at this point. The shadow that's going to be underneath the snow globe will be a more significant amount of blue. But this is just so that way we're breaking up the white. So now I got that nicely filled in. So I'm just taking little bits, as you can see, of light blue and pushing that in, so it's not completely changing the look of the snow. And I'm going to swish off my big brush. I'm just going to pause for a moment. So I just did white and light blue for the bottom, and I would still suggest to stretch that right over the edges of your canvas. And while you have that big brush loaded up and these color tones in mind, we're going to base the inside of the snow globe. And it's the same colors. The only difference is you definitely are, when I'm seeing same colors, I mean just the bottom. So you want to use your white and your light blue. You're not going to be using the dark blue instead. So I'm going to kind of throw that color in right now for you can see that. So we're going to have all of our main shapes done. So just swatch that color for you. There's light blue. And then the color you probably can't see as much just yet is the white. But you want to fill in your snow globe just like you're making one at home, and you just want to dump white snow into the bottom half of your snow globe. So I'm coming in about a little bit less than half and filling that in with white. So there's my snow. And now I'm going to get a little bit of light blue. And I'm going to be really messy about it. I do want it to seem like it's inside the glass. So you don't want it to be too perfect. You want to just follow the shape of the round glass, but you want to also make sure it's bending and swirling inside of your snow globe. So you want to do a lot of curved marks, so you don't need a perfect horizon line for your snow. And I'm dragging my brush again just so I can see where that color is going to deposit. See how I'm just kind of going around in no particular direction, so that way the snow is going to be swirling inside of my snow globe. I'm taking white, light blue, so just like the same colors for the bottom, only doing a lot more light blue for the sky part. So there that goes. And then I have snow, of course, here at the bottom. Just so you can see this a little bit better. Deepen that light blue for you so you can see me swirling it. So I'm going to do it one more time. Just come around and swirl in that blue. So there's my light blue and white snow inside of my snow globe. And you just still, if you're worried about accidentally going outside the lines, the trick is just to slow down and drag the brush. You don't want to do a bunch of short brush strokes. You want to do some very light ones. And if you want to throw some shadows in your snow inside of your snow globe, just like you did down here, you can do that. And these are just like straight lines. Just want to make them very curved, and you can blend them out if they come out too harsh. You can throw some shadows in there and just do white for the snow. And I'm going to put this big brush away in my cup. So that puts us at the last two things to color block in. And remember, just take your time. All good things happen with patience. There's no rush. We got plenty of time. Get out my medium-sized brush, and a nice flat will be perfect for this. And you just want to make sure that brush is damp before you start mixing any color tones. And what you can do is grab a little bit of blue and a pinch of red and mix yourself a purple tone that you like. And there's so many different versions of purple. You can go all the way to like a burgundy. You can also do, let me just show you. So you can do lavender, which would be blue, red, and white over here, for example. You can also do a darker purple by adding a lot less red and a whole lot more blue. And so you just want to play around on your plate for a moment and pick a base color that appeals to you. Any of these purplish red tones are perfect for this piece. So I just pick a different one almost every time you do this. I think the cherry red one was definitely the most out of my comfort zone. So I'm just picking a base color right now. And whatever base color you pick, everything's got a bit of snow touch to it. So you can definitely grab a pinch of white. So just like with the background and in the other area, there's still going to be some white to use. So I'm going to show that now. So remember we did 2 wide open U shapes for the base of our snow globe, and what I'm going to do is just lightly fill that in with the chosen color off my palette. So you just want to mix with red and blue until you find the color that you're happy with. And I'm painting within those gray lines so that way to help hold that shape up for me. And I'm just making sure to have my brush wet enough that the paint glides like melted butter. And remember, you just want to take your time and tell yourself there's no rush. And when you get there, you just want to start on one edge and drag it all the way across. So our nifty understudy is just helping to guide our color blocking right now. So now that I have the base color in for my snow globe, I'm just going to grab a pinch of white and just streak a little bit into there to make it look reflective. So there's some streaks of white, and they're just straight lines to break up that object a little bit. And then I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to use those color tones a little bit more. So I'm not going to make that purple go to waste. I'm going to use it to throw some abstract trees as well as the main tree into our piece. And I will be throwing out some suggestions of like cleaning your brushes and when you want to maybe switch out the water. But we're getting pretty close, so we're in a good place to be right now. So I'm just going to give everyone a few moments to color their base, whatever color they would like. And don't forget to put some reflection lines on there. So reflection lines are just those little white streaks. So they're just like little parenthesis marks, and you just want to throw a few of them on there. And then yes. So for the little trees, you want anything that's round. So a filbert round brush or just a U-shaped or a circle-shaped round brush will work. So these are 2 examples. This would be like a filbert, the U-shaped, and a regular round would just be a circle. So you just want them because they're rounded at the tip. So either one of these will be really great for making those abstract trees we're about to do. And so as I mentioned before, the trees are very abstract. Now, one of the trees, of course, the big one's going to end up being green. However, what I do in order to help mute that green so it doesn't quite look like it's outside a glass is I sketch out its shape as well with the purple, but I am going to go over that shape with green. So the first tree I'm going to do is, and I'm like I mentioned, I'm going to go a little bit more of a lavender tone. So I'm going to add some white to my purple to go down a few levels on the value scale. So I want to be playing around with lavender tones. So here goes my lavender. And I'm loading that up, of course, with a rounder. You can also use your filberts for this step. Just don't want anything with a harsh edge, so I would not be using a flat brush for this. You want to just have something rounded or a filbert. And something very small, so that way it fits inside of your snow globe. And these trees are a lot like muddied up triangles, so they're really simple. The trick is to leave them that way, though. You definitely don't have to worry about is there a branch here and there. So I just start the trees not on the edge of the snow globe because I want this to be where the glass line begins. So I'm just dabbing my brush for little trees just like this. And when I want slightly taller trees, I just take the brush and I make triangles. And again, sloppy triangles because I want them to look like faded away trees. And I'm just going to keep coming across, dabbing my brush and making these tall triangle-like shapes. They're really skinny triangles. They're kind of like weird looking carrots sticking up out of the snow. And you can do that on both sides. So I'm just dabbing my brush for short ones and then making like carrot-like shapes for skinny far away trees. You can dab it for some of these short ones. And you don't want to start right up against the glass. You want to start within the snow globe. And then here I go. I got more. And then I'm going to just dab the brush a few more times. And I'm going to put in a very big triangle now. So what I like to do is when I'm about to do something big is I plan ahead. So I'm going to do 3 little dots to plan how big I want my tree. So that's 1, 2, 3 dots. And this is how big my Christmas tree is going to be. So once you have 3 dots, you can just connect them all. And I'm going to make some shabby edges. So it doesn't have to be a perfect triangle. You can make it realistic, or if you want to do a very neat triangle shape, you can. But there's my shabby triangle. And this one's going to be my decorative tree. So there's my big tree right here in the middle. And my planning tip is just to throw a dot in first before you go in on it instead of drawing that triangle straight out. So there's 1, 2, and I'm just kind of being very loose with all my brush strokes at this point. And then I'm just, now if I have some gaps like next to the tree, I just can go behind it and throw in a few more abstracted triangle shapes that are soft, far away trees that you can't really see. Plus this keeps the focus on the big pretty tree that we're going to actually decorate. So I'm just dabbing and making these awful carrot shapes. You can always fix up the shape by adding a few more brush strokes, but there's mine. So and of course, if you need to edit this at all, I can just show you real quick with a clean brush. You can pull the paint while it's still wet. And you can buff it out a little bit. And you see that's how you can remove paint if you need to. So you don't have to be stuck with that tree if you're like it's too big or you want to soften it. You can just take a wet brush and pull the paint away and then redraw your lines. So just like this, you can buff it out a little bit and then dry it off with a paper towel. And then what I'm going to do is show you that I can just redraw in the line. So there, I took off the top of my tree. And then I can take a little round brush for you and reload up with the exact same color and redraw it. So there you go. Just redrew in the top part. So if you do need to edit anything at all, it is never too late. You can always go back in there and take some off and then reapply color around it. And if you have any excess lavender on your brush, you can apply some of that as shadows on the ground as well, so I can sweep those in. Sometimes I like to redistribute a color just so you see it somewhere else and get used in other places. But there's a few extra areas of lavender. And remember, they're just supposed to be abstracted and very soft looking trees. So the most important one is right there in the middle. And once you're happy with the shape of that tree, you want to continue using a small brush and you can fill that in with just a base layer of flat green. And I emphasize on the word flat because we are going to be decorating this tree. So green was, of course, blue and yellow. And you want to definitely lean towards the lighter green. You don't want to go too dark. But once you have your tree the way you want, you can just lightly fill it in. And I'm just doing some vertical brush strokes to follow the shape of that triangle the easiest way I can. So I'm just going to go vertical lines. And there's a green tree in the very middle now. And that's just with green, so blue and yellow. You can go lighter than I did or darker, or change up the green. I just do warn though, if it's a darker the color, just make sure it's completely dry before you try tapping on any ornaments. So I'm going to demonstrate those star techniques. So you might be familiar with some of these. And I'm just going to give a quick refresher for you before you touch your own canvas with them. But I like using a flat brush to draw in a few big ones first. So you just want to yield up a flat brush and then take off any excess paint on the side of your plate. So you want to make sure it's very sharp at the end. You don't want to have a clump or anything like that because it's going to kind of stop you from getting those nice crisp lines. And one star that I do, the big ones, are a plus sign, and then I usually drag like an X through them. You can also do just a straight line and throw an X through them as well. And I do like 4 of these, and I do them in different sizes too, so they do not need to be the same size. This is also how I make like a glitter beam off of the side of my snow globe. But I'm just drawing plus signs and X's, so they're very simple but pretty. There's another plus sign with a little X through it, and you can actually do this right on the snow globe. So there's those. So now I got some stars there. And that's done. If you don't think your background is streaky enough, before you flick stars, something else you can do is take your flat brush, load that up with white, and you want to just make sure it's damp for this step. You can do dry brushing, but I would suggest a damp medium brush. So I'm going to grab my medium. And if you don't feel like you have enough shooting stars or snow on your snow globe, you can touch that up before you flick your snow. So you can flow more in right here. You can go and swirl more. So you want it to look streaky like it's glass. So if that's not very significant yet on your snow globe or in your background, you can just take your brush and streak a little bit more white paint. Makes it extra magical looking as well. So I'm just doing random amounts of white on my glass, and you can even come in front of those trees if they're dry enough. And If you want to go to your background, you can do that as well. So these are suggestive if you're feeling like you need some more white or snow or some star lines. So there's one there. I can pull some in right here. I can pull in here and here. So if you feel like you were really streaky enough at the beginning of the painting process, you might be in good shape. And if not, you could do that right now. You could just go ahead and throw some more in right now. And you can blend them out with your damp brush. Kind of reminds me of like shooting star paths for me, so I love adding these in before I flick the snow so they're right behind them. And you're just taking a clean brush to buff these out a little bit so they don't look like just perfectly straight lines in my sky. I'm just taking my brush and stretching. So there you go. And the other snow is just flicking. And flicking snow is a lot of fun, but the trick is to make sure you're not using chunky white. So I always go to my plate and I water down like watercolors. You just want to add a lot of water to some white so it's a liquidy white with no chunks in it. So you just want to make sure you go to your plate, water down that white, load up your medium brush, and double check that it's going to flick really good and it's not a stiff brush. You don't want something stiff, you want something that when you pull your thumb up against it's going to release the paint. So I just loaded up a medium-sized brush, and then you can just add as much snow this way too. So I'm just going to point my finger down towards the canvas and start throwing down some stars. And on the snow globe, it's going to look like snow. So look at that double purposing. And of course, adding all that water is allowing the paint to really release from the brush. It's not resisting me. I'm not having to do too much. So it's either going to look like a lot of stars or falling snow. Both are good for this painting. I just don't want to have to draw all of these, so I'm going to spray as many stars and snow as possible. So if you were accidentally making snow all summer, if your summer paint nights, you might have become a pro at making snow and stars. There I go. And you stop when you're comfortable. So there's stars and snow now on my piece. And I'm going to take my advice about that baby wipe or paper towel and get that off my fingers before I touch any devices and forget about that wet paint. And I'm just going to give us all a moment to flick stars, draw stars, touch up our snow, and all that can be done with just your white, but you just want to keep in mind that you can use more than one brush because they are a variety of sizes. So you always want to pick the brush that best fits the shape and size of the object that you're creating. And when you're done, you can join me and just sip and let everyone catch up to us in a moment. And then I was just going to show we can start throwing some shadows in underneath our Christmas tree and underneath the snow globe. So that way we can start throwing in some fun colors for decorating. And so I'm going to be grabbing this small flat brush. I have another one on my desk that's slightly bigger than that last one I was using. But but you just want to be in this nice size range. So I'm just going to show that underneath the camera for a moment. You just want to have some small brushes for shadows because they don't need to be significant for their purpose to be made. So I'm just going to sweep some of a navy tone underneath my snow globe, and then throw a little bit of the medium blue underneath the Christmas tree. And so when you look up, you can just see how I zigzag those in, and I do mean zigzag. So that way the light looks like it's bouncing around those shadows. So for a shadow underneath your Christmas tree, now that paint's dried a little bit, I'm going to take that medium blue and sweep that underneath my tree. So notice I'm going to go right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. And what you can do is after you've put down some shadows, you can always soften them and buff them out so they're not super sharp. So I can just take a clean brush now and just drag my shadows a little bit and buff them down. And the same thing over here in the ground area. You can take a slightly darker blue or the exact same one, but you just want to zigzag a shadow that follows the path underneath the object, so them interacting. So I'm just going to go right here and start pulling out a shadow underneath my snow globe. I'm going to zigzag away. There's a nice deep shadow. You can also use some of your purple up for your shadows. So I'm going to show that as well, that you can use that color tone. So I just did a zigzag, and then you can always buff them down afterwards. So here it comes. You could use purple right there, and I can show some purple on the edges down here. So really anything in that medium family range will make a really nice shadow. And shadows just kind of hug really close to the objects that they're casted from. So you can get pretty close. I'm just taking a clean brush now and just softening it in some places. So don't forget your eraser is always a nice clean, damp brush. I'm just going to smooth those edges out a little bit. And I'm all done. And if you're worried about the tree being flat, I wouldn't unless you're being very minimalistic with your details, like the ornaments. And you can always actually take, and I'm just showing this now, that's something you can do and make a judgment about when you're decorating is you can always do shadows with black on your tree too to give it some more form at the end. So you don't have to do that now, but you definitely don't have to fill your whole tree of ornaments if you don't want to. So let me buff those back out since I was just answering that thoughtful idea. But yes, if you are going to be a minimalistic about your decorations, you still can add other things to the tree to help give it some more definition and pop. And I'm just paused again for a moment. So I'm going to give everyone 2 to 3 minutes for this little step. So you just want to sweep a shadow underneath your Christmas tree and one underneath your snow globe. And again, I would stay with the medium blues. You don't want to go too dark for a shadow. You just want to stay in that medium color range. And you guys are absolutely going to love how we get to decorate the tree, really, because it is going to be a very simple technique. Now, and it really just depends on what color palette you really want to see it finished with. I hope nobody is still spraying snow. I always get that one person I have to ask. I'm like, there's a snowstorm going on over there. But if you really love snow that much, go for it. Just makes me giggle, but maybe it's because Virginia doesn't get that much snow. For a Christmas tree, all you want to do is use the back of your brush with any color that you want. You can tap perfect circles with the back of your brush, and you can actually test this on your plate before you go to your canvas, or on a piece of scrap paper if you want, just to test it out. And I'm just tapping some white right now, and I could show you with another color in as well. And so if you need to mix for your colors, and they aren't just pre off your plate, you can do that as well. I'm going to mix a little bit of what pink. Pink is red and white, by the way, and if you wanted to seem warmer, you can actually add yellow to pink and it'll have a peach tone. So literally any ornament color you want. I have a rose gold tree I'm working on with my sister, and then another one's going to be blue and teal for my daughter. So there's a lot. So here comes teal, and teals are just light bluish greens, and they can also go to the darker side with a blue with a pinch of yellow. So they're super blue green, and either will be a seafoam color or very deep. Teal's usually on the darker side, and turquoise is the version of it being lighter, but they're both of type of green. So if you want to make them, they are just use a little bit less yellow normally in your green, and you'll definitely start seeing turquoise and teal tones. And I'm just going to tap a few more ornament colors, and I'm just using the back of my brush to tap these in like perfect circle ornaments. You can even roll the brush around to make bigger ornaments, so they do not have to be the same size. And also, depending on what brush that you're using, the bigger the brush, usually the back of the brush is a little bit bigger. So that's another way that you can have some larger ornaments. So there I go, and I'm just going to add a few more, but these are all from the back of the brush, so no drawing necessary. You can just tap these out, and if you want to make them slightly bigger, you can just tap and to make them a little bit larger. And everyone, I'm going to go ahead and start streaking in some color tones, and I'm just going to sound very suggestive, I realize, but I definitely don't want anyone to add something they're not comfortable with, or if their favorite color is not pink or the light blues or the lavenders, and they want to do yellow or gold tones or use your metallics and things like that, that you feel completely comfortable doing so. So I'm going to show how I start adding in some of my light tones, and the main trick is to thin the colors down on your plate. You don't want them to be chunky like icing or anything like that. So you can just go to your plate, add a little bit of moisture to the color before you go to your canvas, and I would just sweep these color tones in. They do not need to be a particular shape. You just want them to be elongated and dry as flat as possible. You can even overlap some highlights into your shadows. So I'm just going to continue, and remember, pink is just white and red. You can add other colors to it, a little bit of blue will make it look like lavender, add yellow and you'll get some peach tones, and you can just go around all your snow and just throw in some of these reflective fun colors. And then I can add in some lavender tones to the background as well. So here comes in some lavender. And I'm just sweeping them in at random, so there's no particular place for them. You can put these reflective color tones anywhere. And these can be any color you want. You just want them to come off very soft, and you can always buff them out with a little bit of water and your brush, so you can always soften them after you put them on and blend them further into the snow. You can also take a little bit of white if you feel as if some are too strong, and you can soften them up with a little bit more snow. So snow can fix anything. More snow. And so I'm just having fun at this point, sweeping it in some more snow and just building up the texture. And you just really want this to seem like one whole area, so that's why I keep coming back to just making sure you can buff out and you'll blend out some of your color tones. So as you can see, I'm just going to keep adding in some snow around here. And if you want to do yellow or orange or some other reflective color tone that fits with the decorations you put inside of your tree, you can do that too. You just want them all to be soft, so I definitely am just hinting that you want to use a little bit of white in order to put any reflective color tone down onto your background. And this is a part too where you just want to look around your piece, double check your edges. As you go into this detailing phase, you want to finish up your trees, add more snow. You can write things on this piece. But that was the final and last step for this piece, because everything else, I just really want to give everyone a chance to look their piece over, pause, take a sip, look at their piece again, and see what you would like to add or change before saying it's done. And double check those edges especially. So anything you see me doing in my piece is just me taking that same advice, cleaning up edges and retracing things and make sure that this is something to do